This is my Title IX self-audit. I'm Ryan Madison, and this is for EDU 503. Title IX was passed in 1972, and it says that no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. As a prospective athletic director, I must understand the rules of Title IX and be able to do an audit to check that we are in compliance of Title IX. As the girls basketball coach at Lafayette High School in St. Joseph, Missouri, I chose to just look at my program and compare it with the boys basketball program, for instance, or just compare if our program or our school is in compliance with Title IX. So there are many places where we are in areas of compliance. For example, substantial proportionality. Basically, there's an equal number of kids out for sports. Maybe football has a few more kids out for sports, but that's usually just the case with that sport has a lot more people. But as far as the number of sports, both boys and girls have equal number of sports, and the ratio of the number of people playing or participating in athletics is pretty much the ratio of the school itself. Also, we comply with history and continuing practice of women's athletics program expansion. We have a full and effective accommodation of women's athletic interest and abilities. In Component 2, athletics financial assistance, coaches' pay is equal. The coaching scale is the same scale for all coaches, regardless of gender. The only coaches who get paid less are just on sports that don't last as long. The sports like football and basketball that take a majority of the time get paid a little more than, say, tennis or golf, where the season's not quite as long. There aren't as many students that participate in those sports, so you usually don't have the pay as quite as high. Again, the lesser paid coaches, it depends on the sport, not on their gender. We have an equal number of coaches, the boys basketball team, the girls basketball team. Basically, all the sports have a number of coaches that is adequate for the number of kids participating. Just this year, the girls golf team had a few extra kids out, so they hired an extra coach to be an assistant. Those types of things seem to happen all the time. For the most part, uniforms are bought at the same pace. There's a schedule for all the sports they follow that tells when the uniforms can be purchased, and basically everybody gets those on a schedule. It's not based on anything else, unless a group, like a couple of years ago, our girls basketball team did a fundraiser, and we made a little extra money and bought a third uniform ourselves, paid for it ourselves, but that was our own deal. And next year we get new uniforms, and that'll all be on a rotation. And again, every sport follows that rotation. Practice gear is pretty much equal. We pretty much get the same exact thing the boys do. We use the same facilities. So really, as far as that goes, and again, not just in girls basketball, pretty much every sport where the boys soccer team practices, the girls soccer team practices, they all pretty much have identical facilities and equipment, etc. There's nothing that's really lagging behind in those areas. As far as non-compliance, really Component 3, the equivalence and other athletic benefits and opportunities, the acronym playing fair, there are at least 3 of those letters that I feel like we are not in compliance with at all. The L, the N, and the F of those activities, and I will briefly discuss each one of those areas where we are not in compliance. I will start with the L, the locker rooms and practice and competition facilities. In this area, there's a huge gap between just our boys basketball team and our girls basketball team. Our boys basketball team has a special locker room with these fancy wooden lockers with name plates, places to keep all their stuff. This locker room is not for the PE classes. It is for the boys basketball team only. There are flat screen TVs. There's a video game system. There's a couch. It's a place where the boys basketball team can kind of hang out. And the girls basketball facility, we have a locker room, but it is for all girls in PE classes and athletes of all girls sports. There's a special locker room just for boys basketball. There is not a special locker room for girls basketball. In addition to that, those two locker rooms do not compare at all. The one the boys have is carpeted, again, has a couch, has these oak, fancy, nice lockers with name plates and all kinds of things in them. And the girls' locker room is a typical girls' locker room with regular lockers, etc. Also, the boys' basketball coaches have an office. They have flat screen TVs in there. They have ample storage for the boys' basketball team. That storage is for the boys' basketball team only. The girls' basketball team has a storage area that is inside a room that has volleyball, baseball, softball, tennis. Every sport basically has stuff in that office or in that storage area. It's not a special area that was built just for the boys basketball team or girls basketball team. The girls basketball coaches, we don't actually have an office. I have no office. I have been at Lafayette for 8 years. I have no office, no flat screen TV, any of those sorts of things. So obviously there's a discrepancy in those two areas right there. Also, a few years ago, we found there's a locker room down in the lower level, not too far from the gym. It would be a little bit further away than the boys, but I mean, I would say adequately, pretty close. And we went to, the administration and asked if we could do something with that locker room. It's really a fairly nice area. We could, as we felt like as time went on, we could do some things with fundraisers, maybe add some things to it and make it at least comparable to what the boys have. And we were, not allowed to do that. It was denied repeatedly, and no one actually still to this day really uses that. There's a little bit of storage in there for the custodial staff, but for the most part, that is an area that is not being used, and we could use that area. Then the other areas like that, the basketball racks that we leave up in the gym. The girls' basketball rack has been broken multiple times. People break into it. We actually had to take it to somebody and build like a shell around it. The boys' basketball rack is usually left unlocked, and no basketballs are missing from that rack ever. And only the girls went in. There's teachers in there who do not ever pay attention to that stuff. We go in there all the time, and there's balls that have been taken out of the girls' basketball rack. And this is like the fourth rack we've had to buy. When we had to buy it ourselves, and I think eventually this last one we actually got the school found some money and bought it for us, so we wouldn't have to keep buying them because the boys had a nicer one that we didn't have, and finally that kind of got evened out. The nature of publicity, marketing, media services for athletic programs. One example of this where the girls basketball program lags is in the past the boys basketball program have had a throwback night. And it's a big night. A lot of alumni come back. Only the boys have had that recently. Now this year the girls actually do get to be a part of it, but this was advertised over the intercom at school. They bring it up all the time. It's a huge production. There's a throwback uniform, which I believe is an extra set of uniforms that were just bought specifically for this one game per year. Now they're kind of a funny, there's the shorter shorts and that kind of thing that no one would probably want to wear them the rest of the year anyway. But the fact that and the boys may well have purchased those. I'm not aware of how that was purchased, but a set of uniforms were bought for one game a year. And, it seems odd that would be the case. Cheerleaders and band are rarely at our games and almost always at boys' games. This doesn't happen anymore, but in the early years here, sometimes we'd have a home game and the boys would be just down the road somewhere, and the cheerleaders would be at that, not the home games. Now, that hasn't happened in a while now. I don't think the cheerleaders go to any road games regardless of who's playing, but in the past that's been the case. The band has not been at our games. There's been nights where it's roped off the area for the band and they're not there, but they're at the boys' games always. The starting lineups for the boys, they turn the lights off. They have this big light show. They got this music and all this stuff. And we've had that maybe once or twice in the entire time I've been here in 8 years. Also, as far as the publicity and marketing and that kind of thing, the school personnel promote a lot of the boys' program, a lot of the activities they do at a much higher ratio than the girls. There's announcements over loudspeakers, the fundraisers. There's emails sent out constantly about supporting the boys' program. Rarely is that done for the girls' program. I think this year someone sent out an email, but there's constant messages over the intercom at the end of the day on the announcements about getting stuff done for the boys. And the last thing, we talk about a booster club. This is my eighth year at Lafayette, and I am honestly unaware of any benefits of anything that has been purchased for the girls basketball team from the Booster Club. I think the Booster Club, and unless I'm wrong, there's a touchdown club for football, but it seems the Booster Club is geared more toward football. That would be a compliance issue with all sports, not just the girls basketball program. But I'm relatively sure we have not received anything, any type of benefit from the Booster Club over that time. And the last one, the F, for facilities for and access to athletic training benefits and medical services. Well, as far as facilities go, I've already mentioned the locker rooms and coaches' offices. We have to use the boys' locker room for our games because it's closer. And the area where you go upstairs onto the floor is the area we want to go. We'd have to go all the way around where the other team, the visitor, is to get to this other locker room and to get up to where we enter the court. So we have to use their locker room for games. If they're here, like the Friday night, we're both here, both have home games. I don't if we'll be able to use that locker room or not. I'm not sure. Summer weights also. We're always in the small gym. If there's an open gym at night, usually, and a lot of times our girls have chosen that just due to the air conditioning factor and things like that. But when we're scheduling things for summer weights, it's always basically football and then boys basketball, and then we'll see what times we have left that we can schedule things. And we even had a fundraiser a week or two ago for our baseball team, a youth basketball tournament, and we had to schedule our practice around this tournament. It's basketball season. It's our season right now, and we had to schedule around that to get that done. So in summary, our boys basketball program, again, not trying to take anything away from them, but they are one of the best in the state and have been for several years. It's several Final Four appearances. They're a lot of fun to watch. People come watch the games. I think in a lot of schools, probably the number of people who attend the girls basketball game versus the boys basketball game is probably a little different. I know when I go to colleges and watch those games, there's probably more people at the boys than there are at the girls. But our girls basketball program has been very successful over the last 8 years. It's been one of the better runs we've had at Lafayette. We've been very successful. But regardless of any of those facts, whether we're successful or not, both programs should have equal facilities and support. And I don't know when these locker rooms were built for the boys, but when they were built, whenever that was, there should have been some type of a girls basketball locker room also. And we wouldn't even mind if it was something that was shared with volleyball and that kind of thing. But we literally have no basketball locker room. There's a locker room, yes. We do have a locker room we could use, but it's just the girls' locker room for PE. And again, I have no coach's office. I have no place. Almost everyone else has some sort of a coach's office. There's coaches' offices that are open. And I don't have one, so I don't know why that is, but the boys basketball coach does definitely have a coach's office. Again, regardless of the success level, both programs should have equal facilities and support, and that is definitely not the case in this situation. Thank you.